Welcome back to another episode. Today I'm going to be talking about how your mind needs to be your sanctuary. It is by far the most important thing that your mind be a place where you can actually go to rest and recover and have faith and have optimism and have hope. The challenge with many people these days is that their mind is actually their worst enemy. The mind becomes a garbage pit rather than a sanctuary. If you take a look at the physical structure of a sanctuary or a temple or a church or a building that has some kind of greater energy or power, there's a feeling that you get when you go in there. I can just describe this when I went to India. I still feel it 20 years later. The feeling that I would get going into, and as I'm talking right now, I can feel the actual energy flowing through my body. Every time I would go to this temple, we did a tour of temples in India, I got this incredible feeling of energy and this incredible feeling of peace, this incredible feeling of optimism and hope. And it's something I cannot describe fully, but I know how it feels. And that's how our mind should be as well. If you take a look at the whole principle of meditation or mindfulness, which is thought to have originated 6,000 years ago approximately, the whole purpose was that people even back then had challenges with their mind. And it was to calm the mind, to make their mind their sanctuary. And this is where yogis, if you take a look at their incredible feats, or Tibetan monks, they can do incredible stuff like hold positions for an entire day that the average person wouldn't be able to hold for even 5 minutes or 2 minutes. So they know how to adapt their mind so their mind is actually their sanctuary. So what does that mean? That means that all of us as human beings, we have a mind that has, let's just say, empowering thoughts and disempowering thoughts. And that's normal. That is natural. You cannot get away from that. The thing that needs to be looked at is to what ratio do you have empowering thoughts versus disempowering thoughts? Is it 50-50? Do you have 80-20, meaning that you have 80% empowering thoughts and 20% disempowering thoughts? Is it the other way around, where you have more disempowering thoughts throughout the day? And we all go through periods of time in our life where we are thinking more negatively and disempowering versus empowering. And that's just natural as well. But we need to be able to change that. We need to be able to transform that, because those disempowering thoughts aren't going to help us in any way, shape, or form. So we need to be able to train our minds into being our sanctuaries. And so I've said this many times before, you cannot manage your mind until you've learned how to train your mind, or until you've actually trained your mind. So you can't manage something that you haven't trained, that you haven't learned, right? That you're not getting better at. It's a skill set. That's why mindfulness and meditation is actually a skill set. But I'm going to give you, aside from those two practices, if you're not doing those two practices or either of those practices, I highly recommend that. It is by far the most powerful thing, or things that I've done in my life ever since I was a young boy, that has enabled me to get through the toughest times and be able to be creative and innovative. I started to study the brain through innovation and creativity. That's where my neuroscience studies originated when I was very young, because I was so fascinated by how these inventors could create these amazing things. Where did these ideas come from? And I used techniques and tactics from meditation and mindfulness to be able to become more creative along with the science. And so fast forward, I still use these practices today to get through challenging times and to be more creative and innovative as well. But there's other psychological tactics or techniques that you can apply if you're not doing meditation mindfulness. Meditation and mindfulness will allow your mind to be more calm, so it enables you to have a mind that feels like your sanctuary. Because if your mind isn't calm, you're not going to have that sanctuary. It's virtually impossible. This is why people have a difficult time sleeping, because their mind is continuously racing and just going on and on and on and on and on again. But there's other psychological tactics that you can use, and here's what some of them are. But before you can apply these, the most important thing that you can do by far is to identify what these reoccurring thoughts are, because there's thoughts that pop into your mind that you cannot control. They're one-offs, and you won't be able to grasp them or catch them. But there's these reoccurring thoughts, and I equate thoughts to helium balloons. because helium balloons are just flying all over the place, but you got to tie them down. As soon as you get a string on the balloon and you tie it down to something, you can deal with that balloon. And that's the same thing with thoughts. So if you have this repetitive thought or helium balloon that keeps bouncing into you, you got to tie it down. You have to identify what this thought is. That is the first stage or step. But here are the ways that you can actually shift those disempowering, or some people like to call negative thoughts, into more empowering or positive thoughts. Number one is overriding the thought. So the moment the thought comes in, you override it with something even bigger. And what ends up happening is that the bigger thought, whatever you are doing that overrides the original thought, will eventually take its place. Okay, it will eventually take its place, so you are no longer thinking about that disempowering thought. The other one is typically called a swoosh pattern. There's other names for it, but what ends up happening is if you think about a negative thought, like, oh man, I got to go to work and I got to deal with this person. The moment you do that, you come up with another empowering thought that's attached to that thought, so you automatically trigger the positive thought. So it goes from, oh, I got to talk to that person at work, to, oh, I'm looking forward to getting my coffee at work, if that's something that you look forward to. So you're tying something optimistic or powerful or empowering to that disempowering or negative thought. So you're automatically switching from that negativity to the positivity. Okay. You can also replace the thought. So many of our thoughts, which lead to self-limiting beliefs, originate from our past experiences. Okay. So most of the things that we think about are not based on current reality. They're based on past experiences, and they go on repeat. They go on this autopilot. But you can actually go through, and this is where hypnotherapy is great, or even other therapist practices, is you can actually change the thought. Yes, you can go back and actually change the origin of the thought or change the experience so that it becomes more empowering. And that is very powerful for a lot of people. So they might go back to some past experience or trauma that's been challenging them up until the current date. And someone can actually help them go back and change it, change that original thought, so it's no longer disempowering them today. The other one is you can just delete it or black it out. And so this is similar to a weed that grows through your concrete or growing in your grass. You just stomp it out. The minute that it comes, you just stomp it out. You get really good at that so it doesn't grow. Challenge with not stomping these thoughts is that they get bigger. They're just, these weeds continue to grow and they grow and grow. And a lot of people have so many weeds in their brain and their mind, I should say, that it's hard for them to pull them out now. So the moment you have these disempowering thoughts, just stomp it. And you stomp that momentum that these thoughts carry. So these are some practical ways. And just to sum it up, your mind absolutely needs to be your sanctuary. If you have disempowering thoughts, that's okay. That means you are a human being. Okay. This is what being human actually means. This is what differentiates us between artificial intelligence, because we need some of those disempowering thoughts. They break patterns. They create variety in life. So don't think about can't have any negative thoughts at all. That's not the way the mind works. It's about the ratio of positive to negative thoughts. And mindfulness and meditation are the two best practices that you can use to create that sanctuary in your mind. And then there's other psychological tactics like overriding the thoughts, having some kind of a swoosh or trigger pattern so it goes from negative to positive thought. You can replace your thoughts by going back and actually changing the original experience or thought, or you could just stomp it out or delete it. If you use these tactics, you get really good at this. Watch how your mind changes. You're going to want to go into your mind rather than stay away from it. Many people feel like their mind is their worst enemy. They don't want to go in because their mind just continuously goes into this state of chaos. But the moment you are able to manage your mind through training your mind, it becomes that much more powerful. My mind, in many ways, is a sanctuary, and we train people to turn their minds into their sanctuaries, because that needs to be the safest place that you have, because it belongs to you. Nothing else belongs to you except for your mind.